Lisa Halverson is a former Scientologist who was in Scientology for 15 years. And then in 1990, her family hired some exit counselors to get her to leave Scientology, which she did do. Anyway, she then appeared in 1991 on the Larry King Live show on CNN with Heber Jentzsch and Jerry Whitfield. And we're going to play that interview for you on this video, as well as Lisa is here to tell her story about her time in Scientology and then how she left Scientology. I think you're going to find this video very interesting and informative. Here we are with Lisa Halverson. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our channel, Scientology, Peeling the Onion. My name is Mark Fisher, and I'm going to bring on my co-host, Janice Gillum-Grady, and our guest who she's going to introduce. Hi, Janice. How you doing?
Hey, Mark. I'm good. G'day, everybody. Welcome to Peeling the Onion. And today, this is Lisa Halverson. She's a good friend of mine, and she's actually the only person I think I know that got out of Scientology through intervention. But she got into Scientology in 1977 and was at Santa Barbara on staff as public, worked with my dad when he would come up and do public events. She was in the SEAL for a period, and then she left, and then she was just public, and she went up the OT levels. So anyway, this is going to be an interesting conversation with her because of the intervention from her family, along with Hana Whitfield and her husband, Jerry. They were involved in this. So this is a total new story that a lot of people have probably never heard of.
And just so people know, people call it, was it exit counseling, or what was the other derogatory term they called it?
Deprogramming,
exactly.
yes.
Well, you have to be programmed in order to be deprogrammed, I always say.
Yeah, well, Scientology,
so Scientology is good at programming.
So it's the same as brainwashed and unbrainwashed.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. And Scientology always painted it as these deprogrammers or criminals, and they kidnap people and this and that, which we're going to go into the details.
Yeah.
But the cool thing that we have for you all is that Lisa went on Larry King Live on CNN in 1991 and basically talked about leaving Scientology. Heber Jentzsch, the president of this church, Scientology, and Janice's stepfather, who was still in Scientology at the time, and you had been long gone. Anyway, he's on there defending Scientology. Also, Jerry Whitfield, who was Hana Whitfield's husband, and he was an exit counselor. And then there's another guy who's like a minister association or whatever. And he was like a paid shill for Scientology, if I'm not mistaken, because they would use him whenever they needed to have, a religious person come on and say, oh, yes, Scientology is a religion. Oh, they should be left alone, this and that. You know what I mean? And so they get donations and stuff and all that. So we're going to show you, Lisa's interview with Larry King. It's about 15 minutes long. And then afterwards, we're going to go into detail and talk into more detail about her experiences in Scientology, and then how she left Scientology and what her life's been like after that. Okay.
Right.
One thing I wanted to mention up front, this is 1991. Now, just so you understand, this is around the time, shortly after the Time magazine article came out, Scientology, the Cult of Greed, which is a huge flap for Scientology. It was a huge, huge deal because it was Time magazine was a huge national magazine, and it was carried all over the world. And they did an in-depth, article on Scientology, interviewing former members and, the whole bit. And Scientology did not like it at all. Miscavige and OSA and anything like that. They wanted Time magazine, put out of business, and they actually sued them. And it took years, and Scientology finally, they lost the suit, right? But so you're going to hear Heber on here, and he's going to be defending, Scientology, and some of the references are going to be to that article in Time magazine. So I just wanted to let everybody know what the time frame was at that. Okay.
Okay,
You guys have
great.
anything else you want to say before we start the video?
Roll it.
Okay.
Okay, so without further ado, this is going to be Larry King Live on CNN in 1991, and it'll kind of explain itself. He's going to go ahead and introduce the guests. So here we go.
With us is Heber Jentzsch. He is president of the Church of Scientology International, a church founded by L. Ron Hubbard. We're also joined in Los Angeles by Lisa Halverson. Lisa, a 15-year member of the church who recently quit. And here in Washington, Jerry Whitfield, former Scientologist who now runs intervention groups designed to help people get out of the church. And Donald Sills. Donald is president of the Coalition for Religious Freedom. Let's go back to Lisa. Why did you quit?
Why did I quit? My parents were very concerned about my involvement in Scientology, and they brought some exit counselors to talk to me who had some very alarming things to say about Scientology, of which I, as a very obedient member, was completely unaware of. And I was so shocked to find out about the criminal activities of Scientology and of all the lies that L. Ron Hubbard had perpetrated about himself and his past and his apparent achievements, that I could no longer remain in the group.
You say your parents affected you, Lisa. How old are you?
I'm 37.
Isn't that a little late to have parental effect on what religion you choose?
It's very late to have parental effect on what religion you choose, and they just about decided not to do the intervention because they didn't want to interfere in my life. But I am so thankful that they did do that, because I feel very liberated and very free at the moment, whereas I was not feeling that way in Scientology.
Why then did you, if you weren't feeling that way, if Scientology wasn't bringing you what you wanted, why didn't you leave?
Because I didn't know how I felt when I was in Scientology. I was too wrapped up in the mind control business of it.
You mean you thought you felt good and your parents told you you didn't feel good?
My parents didn't tell me I didn't feel good. I came to my own conclusion after I was able to evaluate the information on both sides of the story.
Give me some examples of things you found out that caused you to lose interest.
Well, about 10 years ago or so, 11 Scientologists were arrested on, they were found guilty of having infiltrated government agencies. And I found out that this still goes on today, but the church tells us that they don't do that.
Infiltrate like what agency to do what?
Well, that's really beyond my ken, to be perfectly honest with you. I was a rank-and-file Scientologist. I was not someone in the upper echelon of the church. And so what the upper echelon of the church does is very dirty, but the average Scientologist is not made aware of these things.
Okay,
well, respond to that.
I didn't interrupt you, Heber, so
hold
don't
on.
interrupt me.
What did it cost you every year to be a Scientologist?
Over 15 years, I spent close to $250,000. Some years I spent $10, $20, $30, $40, $50,000. Other years I didn't spend anything. There were years where I wasn't eligible to do services because I had left staff and I had freeloader debts to pay back to the church before I was able to then pay the church for more services.
What, there were no pluses over the 15 years?
There were some pluses, probably more towards the beginning than towards the end.
Did they force you to stay?
Well, they make it very difficult for you to leave. They make it very uncomfortable for you to leave.
Example?
And, well, now I'm speaking out against the church, and I could be declared a suppressive person and open to fair game. And fair game, they'll do anything. They'll kill your pets, try to run you off the freeway, you know.
I'm sitting right next to you, and you say that.
Hold it, Heber.
Larry.
I know. I'll have Heber. I'll have you comment
Larry,
in a second.
I can't
Lisa,
hear you.
Lisa, they will kill your pets.
Well, I heard that happened to some other people after they came out publicly against Scientology. It says in this ethics book here that to speak out publicly against Scientology is a suppressive act. Yet in this other book here, it talks about the creed of the Church of Scientology, where L. Ron Hubbard says that the church believes that one can speak freely and one can comment freely on the opinions of others. But in Scientology, if you criticize L. Ron Hubbard or speak out publicly against it, you're declared suppressive.
Hebert, it's your floor.
Thanks. You know, I heard so many things there. First of all, I want to indicate that she's talking from the fact that she has been deprogrammed by people who are members of the Cult Awareness Network. That is a criminal organization which is involved with kidnapping people,
I was not
ripping them away
kidnapped
from
and
their
I wasn't
faith,
deprogrammed.
ripping away them from their faith. They've held people against their will over the years. Their founder was Ted Patrick, a 3-time convicted criminal. And also their recent president was just arrested. Their recent president just resigned.
She said it was her parents. She didn't say Ted Patrick or anyone. She
There was
said her
somebody
parents.
else involved, and I think I don't know who it is, and I have a feeling it's your next guest, but I will tell you this. That activity is criminal. It's a hate group, and that kind of stuff doesn't go in America because
Are you saying categorically that Scientologist does not take any action against people who speak out against them?
We've taken no action against people who've spoken out against us except in the courts, and I'll tell you this particular charge, these people who are deprogrammed come on and they're pulled onto television later, just like the Chinese used to do with their brainwashing tactics. They bring a person on who's caved in, lost their religion, and that's their particular thing where the people now say, oh, listen, you know, I no longer like the religion, they hate the religion, etc. That's the exact phenomenon. And I'm telling you,
were members of the Church of Scientology convicted of government infiltration?
You know, there were 11 members in the church at one time, about over 10 years ago. Those people committed crimes. We removed those people from office. They'll never hold an office in this church again. But with 8 million members around the world, you know, that was 11 people.
Okay.
Do you read, Larry, one particular thing. Larry, do you read when somebody gets arrested that he's a Jew? Do you read that he's a Catholic? Just put the word Jew, Catholic, or something else in there, and then you see how absolutely vicious this kind of attack on religion is.
Unless they were 11 people from one temple who went out and committed a crime collectively together and then went back to the temple and shared the loot, I would call them the temple raiders, maybe.
Yes, but if you had millions of members and 11 people did something like that out of millions of members and thousands of staff members, you'd say, I'm not going to paint the whole group that way.
You have
that is insane.
That's correct. You have no personal animosity against Lisa?
I've never met this girl before, as far as I know. We're sitting right here next together. That's why this allegation just is absolutely, totally insane.
We'll be joined by two others, Hana Jerry Whitfield and Donald Sills, and we'll come back as well with more of Heber Jentzsch and Lisa Halverson, Billy Crystal later. This is Larry King Live. Don't go away.
All right, let's go ahead and comment on the first section there, and then we'll do the second section. Janice, what do you have to say, or anything that you saw? You got to see Heber. You know,
Heber looks great.
In 1991.
In 1991. So that was a year after I had left.
He was good, and just so you people know, he is running the Scientology line. He's pushing the Scientology line, right? That, oh, you know, she was deprogrammed, and there were only 11 people out of 8 million who were involved in this criminality, when in actuality, it was Mary Sue Hubbard and the Guardian's office who were at the top of Scientology management, and they were the ones that were doing these things. So he tries to make it seem like, oh, these are like these people off to the side who really didn't have any control, so we got rid of them. I mean, it's just trying to make nothing of it.
Also, Mark, I believe it was like about 2,500 people that they had that to infiltrate the various different government offices.
Yeah, exactly.
So it wasn't just...
only 11 got caught.
11 got caught. Right.
Yeah, but he's just trying to make nothing of it, and that's the way Scientology tries to deal with that sort of thing.
Well, that's his job.
Well, that was the next point I was going to make, is that he has an audience of one person on that show, and that one person is David Miscavige. And if he doesn't go after whoever's on there, he gets cremated by David Miscavige afterwards, to the point where he's removed from post or sent to the RPF or whatever. In other words, he is talking to one person, and Miscavige will go, you didn't attack enough, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. And you'll see Larry King actually does a good job of keeping Heber, I'll come back to you. He does a good job, you know, overseeing his own show. You'll see some more of that in the next
Well,
segment.
I remember in 1990 when Heber was up at the base, we would do renovations together. We hung out together, and he was being forced to divorce Karen around that time. But every time he went on a talk show or anything, he'd come back and he'd get yelled and screamed at and sent to cramming. It was really abusive what he was going through from Miscavige at that time.
That's right. And it went on for a long time. And afterwards,
Yes.
we heard it was even more brutal after we left. Lisa, what do you feel like when you see yourself, whenever that is 35 years later on television? What's that like?
That I looked a lot younger at the time.
Don't we all?
At the time, while we were, first of all, I was pushed up against Heber, like they were sitting shoulder to shoulder, and I was out of my mind with alarm, because I had told the producers, if this guy Heber Jentzsch is going to be on the show, that I won't do it. I told him I won't do that show. So when I walked in the CNN studios in Hollywood, and then Heber Jentzsch was across the room, I about died, because at the as part of my intervention, there was getting it to the point where I made my own decision that I'm not going to do this anymore. Then after that, there was a whole bunch of education, and Jerry and Hana Whitfield had huge suitcases full of cassette tapes and videotapes and things of all these things that had happened in the media that were trying to talk about Scientology, expose Scientology, whatever. And in one for one, Heber was always there, the spokesperson for Scientology, and his MO is attack, never defend. Right. And that's all he did. And I just heard tape and show about this, and I didn't want to be subject to that. So I walked in.
You did a great job.
And I'm like, oh.
You did a great job standing up to him.
Yeah, you did.
I know. And I'm really proud of myself. Actually, that's the biggest thing I took away from that, is that I don't know if you caught that little thing there where at one point I said, I didn't interrupt you, so don't you interrupt me. And it's because prior to what we just saw, Heber was interviewed alone by Larry King. Before Larry King interviewed me, he talked to Heber straight on, and Heber went off and on orders and blah, 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 blah. Well, and I didn't, I'm sitting shoulder to shoulder with him, and I didn't say anything. So when he started to chime in on my bit, I wasn't having it. And I couldn't believe that I am saying this to somebody who, 2 months previous or 3 months previous, I was practically worshiping next is number 2 in line to L. Ron Hubbard. So
I understand. Now, let me ask you, how did this interview even come about? I mean, was it because of the Time Magazine article, or what?
Exactly, precisely because of the Time Magazine article. And they had Jerry Whitfield and Hana Whitfield became kind of lightning rods for this. Their name got circulated. This is if you're a producer of a show and you want somebody from Scientology on, an ex-Scientologist, you talk to those people. Hannah herself was on Sally Jesse Raphael on a 60-minute show. And so anyways, they were called about the Larry King Live thing, and Larry King Live was looking for someone who had recently left. They didn't want to do the show because they were getting overexposed. They had done too much press following that magazine article from Time. So they suggested me, and I was, kind of interested, but I didn't want to go up against Heber. And I did it, and I went up against Heber, and I'm still here.
And you did good.
You did good. Janice, explain to our viewers who Hana Whitfield is or was, because she's been around.
Yeah, Hana originally, when I met her in the Sea Org in early '68, was Hannah Eltringham, and throughout her whole Sea Org career, everyone knew her as such. And she was the captain of the Avon River, trained by Hubbard to captain a ship. And later on, she came over to the Royal Scotsman, or the Apollo, same ship. And that's where I got to know her better. She worked directly with the Commodore, handling all of HCOs around the world. She was Commodore Staff number 1. And she did various things. And then she was sent out to Los Angeles, where she was the Deputy Commodore for the Pacific. So she was over all of the organizations in Los Angeles, the Advanced Organization, the St. Hill Celebrity Center, the ships, because we had a few ships down there, and LA Org. So Hannah oversaw all that, and later came back to the Apollo and was in charge of authorization and verification, AVC. And so that's where Hubbard handed over his job of authorizing everything to her. so that any evaluations, any flag orders, or any issues, even telexes going out to the orgs, all went through her office. And all evaluations had to be verified by her office. So she was very well respected by the Commodore himself and all the Sea Org members for who she was.
Right. And then she eventually left, right? And then...
Well, yeah, once we moved ashore, she actually, I believe she became an auditor and was auditing, but she also went to the RPF. And I think that was kind of where she was fed up with it and left around that time. So that was in the late 70s, maybe early 80s. I'll have to ask her. I'm in very close communication with Hana. We're very, she was one of my mother's best friends. So when I have questions on my mother, different things, I go to Hana.
Yeah, and she was an expert because she knew Hubbard really well, worked closely with him. So if anybody knew Hubbard, other than Janice, it would be Hana.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go back and let's watch the show here from this point forward.
And I certainly believe in Scientology and the practices of and systems of. And I'm here to stand for what I believe in. It's as simple as that.
Our guests are in Los Angeles, Heber Jentzsch, President, Church of Scientology International; Lisa Halverson, a recent member, 15-year member who recently quit. Here in Washington, Jerry Whitfield, former Scientologist, now runs intervention groups designed to help people get out of the church. And a return visit, third visit to this program, for Donald Sills, President of the Coalition for Religious Freedom. Jerry, why do you have to intervene to take people out? Why not just join or leave, as one wishes anything? Any faith.
That would be very easy to do if this group did not use mind control techniques, the same types of mind control techniques that the Chinese communists used.
For what purpose?
Purpose of keeping the people in the group, people of continuing to get more and more money from people.
How did you break away?
I walked away in what they call a walk away.
How were you able to do that?
I didn't have money to continue. I just didn't have.
So they're mind controlled. They weren't interested in you because you didn't have money?
Primarily, I needed another $60,000 to continue, and I didn't have that money.
Why would you need that kind of money to be a member of a church?
Well, that's a good question. You need that money to give to Scientology. This young lady that was on here earlier, Ms. Halverson, said something like $250,000. What people
What do you pay for?
You pay for specific services, and services, the farther along you get, the more expensive they get. It's not unusual for a person to spend anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000 to get from the bottom to the top.
When you start spending the money, you must be getting something out of it.
You are getting something out of it, and you feel euphoric, and that goes away. You can snort coke and feel the same way, and that goes away also.
Why do you
Jerry,
hold on
one second. 1 second.
Okay, ask how much he gets for deprogramming.
Why did you get yourself involved in deprogramming? I'll ask the questions here, but I do this for a living.
Okay, great.
Why did you start to do this?
People came to me and asked me to talk to them about Scientology, and I said, I can't talk to people about Scientology this much. I just can't do it. People were talking 15, 20, 40, 60 hours a week about Scientology, and I said, I just can't do it. And finally people said, I'll pay you if you'll talk about it. So I said...
So you go around to...
So I talk to people about Scientology.
And you charge individuals to remove them from?
I don't remove people from Scientology. People have the right to see Scientology as it really exists.
And you have the right to charge them.
And I have the right to say, hey, look, I've got to pay my rent at the first of the month every month.
So how would you work a fee like that? I mean, like what? How's it work?
Well, you would have to ask...
I've got a cousin in Scientology. I want you to talk to her, so I hire you to talk to her?
Yeah, you would.
I see. And I pay you as I would any consultant fee for like an hour's services.
Right.
Donald, you're president of the Coalition for Religious Freedom. What do you make of all this?
It gets to be the point, Larry, where it's just absolutely humorous because of what's happened in these situations. I come from an old school. I'm a Baptist, been a Baptist preacher for 34 years. And I'm kind of hard-pressed when I've got friends that are involved in churches, and I find other people that come along, and I've been involved with people where they've been kidnapped, they've been placed in vans, they've been taken away. They were called deprogrammers. New term today is exit counselor. Intervention, I think that was a word that was used. It's a new phrase.
You don't like it?
No, I don't like it. I don't like it. A combination of things. It's a vigilante group. Anybody that sets themselves up to take over somebody else's life is acting as a vigilante. And I don't care if it's a government or an individual or
the
an organization.
now.
That's right.
You're saying the Church of Scientology has a right to be a church, people have a right to join it, pay $60,000, not pay $60,000, leave.
That's absolutely right.
What if you believe they were using mind power? What if you believe they were doing things to keep people against their wishes?
When you deal with the phrases, for example, that came out in Time magazine, cult, that very term, if you go into the dictionary, what is a cult? A cult is an individual that's committed himself to a life or a practice or a belief. Now, there's been a list of things that have been put together with this, and there's a number of deprogrammers across the country. Ted Patrick, Steve Hassan, some others that have been even on your program. Jerry and I have never met before.
Are you saying that you have nothing against Scientology personally?
I have no problem with Scientology. I don't believe in their philosophy and their concepts as a theology. That's their business.
You're against intervention of any kind.
That's
whether
right.
It was Sun Myung Moon.
That's right.
Against people trying to stop people.
Our position with the coalition is that it's the American defending the rights of Americans to believe as American wants to be. Very simple.
Jerry?
A person has the right to choose.
Don works for an organization that has the same board members as the Scientology organization. Don gets paid by the Moonies, and Don gets paid by Scientology.
That's
And
an interesting. Where do I get my money?
Well,
No. You made a statement. Please document that, Jerry, because that's heavy.
That is heavy.
Yeah, where do I get my money?
You'd have to show me your bank accounts and your checks.
I'll tell you right
You made
now.
the charge. Are
Yeah.
you saying that Scientologists...
I received no money from the Scientologist or from the Unification Church or from...
have.
No, I've received money from a lot of groups.
Never received money.
Not the issue. You're saying my salary comes from them now.
That's not what I said. I said
I don't
you
receive
get
my
paid-
salary
He
from
said members of the board of your board of directors are Scientologists and members of the Unification.
First of all, I received no salary from the Coalition for Religious Freedom.
You
None
never
whatsoever.
received any money from any Scientologist.
Jerry gets
or
his
ever
money
moved.
from
I've
kidnapping.
never,
Jerry gets his
I've
money
never
from
received
kidnapping.
any money from the Scientology.
Jerry
One at a
gets
time,
his money
hold
from
it.
kidnapping.
That's
Hold
not
on.
true.
Stop. Hold it. With four people, I
wanna be
can't
able to
control if
respond.
everybody talks. Well, let's start
Yeah,
with
can I-
Heber.
can I respond?
And then, yes, Heber.
Yeah, because look, let's take a look at Jerry. He made $1 billion suit against the Church of Scientology. $1 billion. I didn't say million. I said $1 billion. And he said he called it a class action suit. He found 8 people in that. You know what? They went to the court 8 times. And the judge finally said after, they went 6 times. It was thrown out. And finally the judge said, the court must conclude that there are no facts constituting fraud by them that can be truthfully alleged. That is what that's what Jerry's all about. Lots of money, pyramiding schemes. He came into Narconon because he was a drug dealer. He came in because he was absolutely having a tremendous problem. We took him off of drugs. We helped him. You know what? He had a better life than he'd ever had. Now it's just sour grapes because he wants to have that back.
Any
He
good
hasn't got
church,
it. That's what it is.
Any good church, if a member, I would assume, doesn't have money, continues to help that member.
Listen, we would have helped the guy, but he came in and he started committing acts which would make him capable to be a member, and that's the problem with this guy. Now he wants to come back. I tell you what, he found something. He's like a little kid. He lost it, and he wants it back. And that's the same thing with Lisa, except if anybody's brainwashed, this lady is, and I'd like to know from Jerry whether he was involved in her deprogramming. That's what I'd like to know. And how much money did he get? How much money did he get?
You were not involved with Lisa. You don't know Lisa.
I've seen her on TV tonight.
Oh, but that's the first
You've
time
never met her.
Never met her.
You affirm
Okay.
you've never met her.
Okay, let me get a break, come back and include some phone calls, and then we'll meet Billy Crystal. Our guests are Heber Jentzsch. He's president, Church of Scientology. Lisa Halverson, a former member. Jerry Whitfield, former member who runs intervention groups designed to help people get out. And Donald Sills, president of the Coalition for Religious Freedoms. Tomorrow night, a major discussion on whether we're having too many parades after the Gulf War. We'll be right back.
Okay, that's that next section.
Heber at his best.
Yeah. So my question after watching that is, had you met I thought Jerry was involved in the intervention to get you out, and this is the end result of that, is you were out. And so you had met Jerry before.
Yeah, go ahead and
Yes.
talk about that. Yeah. You
Yeah,
go ahead and talk about that. Yeah.
Prior to this, not prior to the broadcast, prior to the taping, Jerry came, but Jerry was actually in Washington, D.C. for this. So I don't know if it was over the phone, but we had a specific conversation about this. He said, because of a promise that he had made to my father about the the setup of the intervention, that it was at my father's house, and my father had, was financially pretty much responsible for it. So he had an agreement with my dad that he was not going to ever disclose that he had done the intervention. It wasn't going to publicly disclose it. And so before we went to taping, Jerry and I had a conversation about this, and I was really, he said, if I'm asked, I'm going to have to lie. And we were both very, it was a little bit of a moral crisis for us, because here we're coming out of a realm of deception and trying to be truthful and honest. But in this one particular case, there was a little exception there, because he couldn't betray my dad on this one particular point. So that's why he denied knowing me on air.
You know, the way to handle that would have been to say, I don't discuss the people that I just, consultate with, or what, you know what I mean? That's what attorneys always do. I can't, you know what I mean? They have some way around it without actually saying,
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the point was for Lisa to make the lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, he didn't handle that very well, but hindsight is 20/20, as we like to say. Anyway, you could see Heber in the attack mode. That was the David Miscavige, like, get in there and start telling him he's kidnapping people. He's making all this money. But it's also funny too, that other guy that's on there. I mean, literally, he was used all the time. Even when I was in Scientology, he was used to back up, to get religious recognition for Scientology and stuff. He just,
if you were around for that,
yeah.
Was he paid?
Well, he said, I didn't get my salary from them. That's not, no, they donated to the coalition.
He wasn't on a
it's
salary.
like, it's just a way of talking around it.
Yeah,
exactly. At the tail end of the whole show, Steve Hassan calls in, and Larry King takes his call. And one of the many points Steve Hassan makes is that the Moon Organization donated $500,000 to start up the Coalition for Religious Freedom. But I know that Scientology was in there. I just don't know all the specifics of, they were in there with the Moon Organization, so they could.
Yeah, Steve Hassan has written books about
seemingly not innocent, but nonpartisan viewpoint of, promoting religious freedom without being Scientology or the Moonies doing it for themselves.
Yeah, and Steve Hassan, Joe, our viewers know, he is, I don't know if he's a psychologist or whatever, but he's written books about cults and getting away from cults and that type of thing. He's spoken
I can't remember what cult he emerged from.
Moonies. I think it was Moonies.
Was he in a
I thought it was Moonies.
I think so. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, he
went
to college and got his graduate degree in counseling after that. So, so he's really well schooled in all of this.
Okay.
You guys ready to go? Here we go.
Yep,
Sure.
ready to go.
Before we go to some calls and meet Billy Crystal, Jerry, are you a vigilante?
No, I'm not a vigilante.
Are you a member of any organized group that goes out to deprogram people?
No, I work for myself. I have my own business. People call me and ask me if I'll come and see them.
Okay. Boston, hello.
Yes. Don Sills just called me. I'm Steve Hassan, a kidnapper and deprogrammer. I just wanted to state for your viewers that the Coalition for Religious Freedom was founded with $500,000 from the Moon Organization. I, in fact, confronted him 2 years ago when I was on your show, Larry. You were on vacation that night. And I do want to state that if people want to know the truth about Scientology, there's an excellent book called A Piece of Blue Sky by a fellow named John Atack, which Scientology has gone to try to stop for 5 years, and it went to the Supreme Court and is now out, and people can have the objective research facts about this group.
Can you give us a caller? You'll help me a lot. Give me one salient fact about Scientology that they do that Heber can respond to. What's one? Give me one thing they do.
Let me just respond.
Hold it, Heber. Hold it. He just told me the title of a book that doesn't mean anything. Give me one thing, sir.
The two crucial pieces that have been missing in the discussion so far is the issue of deception, and that is, I believe in religious freedom, but people have to have information to make an informed choice. In Scientology, many people get recruited through front organizations like Sterling Management. I just met a dentist.
Okay, he said his point.
Who is taken in.
No, he didn't, Heber. Hold it. Heber, I'm making a point for you, Heber. Heber, please.
Yeah. I'm trying to.
Caller, give me one thing Scientology does that's evil.
What they do is hypnosis through their training routines. They teach people to shut down and become uncritical and passive and obedient. Which
All right, stop right there. Heber, do you use hypnosis to keep people in the organization and non-critical?
Absolutely not. The Cult Awareness Network rapes people because they say they took a woman and raped her because they said she was a lesbian. So this was
Don't tell me
therapy.
about them. Tell me about you. Do you
I'll tell you about
hypnotize
me.
people in Scientology?
No.
You do not use
at
hypnosis.
all.
Okay.
Listen, but let me just say,
You're saying the
Steve
caller is
Hassan
totally
makes a
wrong.
fortune off of kidnapping people. That's what he
Okay,
does, and that's what Whitfield does.
If we had kept...
They
hold it.
kidnap people.
Hold it. Stop.
That's terrorist.
The subject is The subject is Scientology. He made a charge. I asked him to be specific. He said hypnosis to keep membership in. You say you do not use hypnosis.
We de-hypnotize people, if anything, in life, and we can handle the problems of people who have been hypnotized.
Were you hypnotized when you were a member, Jerry?
I was. I didn't know it at the time. I thought I wasn't.
What do you mean you didn't know it?
Because a person can be hypnotized without knowing that it's hypnosis. They can be put into a hypnotic trance without being told that that's what it is. And that's the thing about it is...
Yeah, but a great speaker can do that.
That's right.
Hitler hypnotized the crowd, but they weren't hypnotized. They were
They
moved,
followed
they
his
believed,
suggestions.
they voted, they followed.
They followed his
But a
suggestions.
political speaker could hypnotize a group. It's not a fair term to say it's mass hypnosis.
And it's not.
the Army,
It's
it'd be the
done
same things.
one-on-one. It's done on a one-on-one drills in Scientology. And I didn't know that until 5 years after I left Scientology. And it's deceptive, and they deny it. Most of the people who deny it do not know what hypnosis is. They do not know what a trance state is.
If they did that, would you give up your post?
If it was documented that Scientologists or any group was involved in hypnosis, I would go after them myself.
Don, would you talk?
And I'll go
hello.
after the hypnotists in the Cult Awareness Network. They are the hypnotists in life, Larry.
Lisa,
Look,
were you hypnotized?
They're making a lot of money doing this.
Lisa, were you hypnotized? Lisa?
A lot of money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The techniques of counseling and training in Scientology do have an hypnotic effect. L. Ron Hubbard was a master hypnotist. Most Scientologists haven't a clue that that's what's really going on.
Larry,
you're
one of the
hypnotized
things
now.
that one
I
of the
am
things
not
that seems
hypnotized
to
now.
come one of the things that seems to come across to me with some of the charges and the people that I've met, you'd almost get the idea that these people had no mind at all. They had no control over their own selves. And here's a girl at 37 years of age. I don't, Jerry, how old were you when you came out of this particular church?
39, 40.
Okay. Man, when you get to that point in your life, it would appear that you would have some control over your life.
Absolutely.
And to go...
We get a call from Lancaster. Hello.
I have problem understanding that.
I'd like to share an experience that I had with the Scientologists in 1978. They were trying to recruit people. I was in college, and I was walking past a payphone, and it rang. I answered it. A woman was on the phone, and she was very friendly. She said, "Would you like to go to a party?" And I said, "Sure." And she told me where the party was. I went to the neighborhood. It was a very nice neighborhood. They obviously were renting a nice house. There were about 5 to 7 people sitting there. They took us into a room. I don't know who the other people were, never met them before, and they started talking about how we could attain higher levels of some kind of communication or consciousness. This happened in 1978, as I said, so I'm not real clear on it. But I started asking a lot of questions, and immediately they took me out of the room, one person, sat me down in a small office, asked me a couple questions. I don't remember what they were, and then I realized something's strange here, and I left. And I just...
There's only one flaw in that story, sir. How did they know you were walking by the phone?
Yeah, exactly.
It happened, I swear.
I'm not denying it. It's just really, they must be pretty powerful. We will do a lot more on this, I guarantee, and I thank you all. Heber Jentzsch, Lisa Halverson, Jerry Whitfield, Donald Sills.
Now, let me ask you, Lisa, after the show, like obviously your segment was over. Did you just leave was there any interaction between you and Heber or anything like that?
Good question. We walked it was a really tiny studio that we're in, and there were a few, very young little assistants. And I just walked over to the desk of one of them, and I sat down and said, "I have to stay here until he goes," meaning Heber. I didn't want to ride down the elevator with him. And I was shaking. I was like, whoa, I was crazy. But so I hung out there for about 20 minutes. And then maybe even a half an hour. And then I went downstairs, and they had sent a driver to my place to pick me up. CNN had to take me there. And the driver was there, and he was really nice and took me home. And I got on the phone with my stepmother. And the first thing she goes is, "Heber put a lid on it." You couldn't really hear it in this broadcast. But at one point when Heber was saying Jerry Whitfield, he gets his money from kidnapping. And I'm right next to Heber, and I go, oh, put a lid on it. And then it said, it's not true. Anyway, enough of that. It was, I was totally shaken, and I stayed in the office and hung around until I knew the coast was clear, and then I left.
Now, Janice, Hannah wanted us to mention what happened with you, Lisa, when you went home and you had a Scientologist that was renting a room from you or something, and they showed you what
and ethics, the goldenrod, her suppressive person declare.
Yeah, can you tell us that story?
I don't think it was I had forgotten this until Hannah brought it up to me very recently, and I was like, how could I forget about that? Anyway, I did have a Scientologist renting the second room in the condo that I was living at. She was barely a Scientologist. I had to spell it out to her once I got to the point where I had actually revealed that I was no longer in Scientology. I had to spell it out for her. I said, Celebrity Center's not going to let you live here with me now that everybody knows that I'm not in Scientology anymore. I'm not quite sure who brought me this ethics order, this piece of goldenrod, but I was completely blown away, shocked. It's because it said that I was pain drug hypnosis, I was PDH, among other things. And
by psychiatrists, and PDH, which is pain drug and hypnosis. In other words, basically drugged and implanted to say terrible things about.
Right, programmed.
Exactly. Yeah, it went on and on. I don't think it was the SP declare, because if I'd seen my SP declare, I would have seized on it and framed it and put it on the wall. I think it was a separate ethics order thing on goldenrod, because I don't think my declare came out that quickly. It was months later that someone told me they heard that it was on the board at the AO or the ASHO or something like that.
So people know, Scientology put out an ethics order on Lisa to let people know what she had done, what they said she was done. She was kidnapped and by psychiatrists and drugged and this and that, in order to basically what they call in Scientology dead agent Lisa. In other words, make her so she's not that reliable, or don't talk to her.
Now, Mark, the upside of that is that I had very few of my former friends in Scientology come to try and talk me out of it, to try and get me back into the fold. I had to deal with very little of that, which was something I was really worried about. People, preying on my heartstrings to, try and lure me back into the fold. So
now let's ask, how did you actually get, not deprogram, whatever you want to call it, exit counseling?
How did I make the decision?
About, and what did they do that made you decide, hey, something's wrong here?
Very interesting. I can say that during the time frame of the intervention, I'm flying from LA to Pennsylvania, where my dad and stepmother lived, to visit. And I hadn't seen them for a while, and blah, blah, blah. And then
you were still a Scientologist.
Oh, I'm a Scientologist. I'm auditing on OT6. I had my solo nuts materials in a money belt under my clothes. I had my e-meter in a locked briefcase. I had the whole thing. I was trying to hide the solo auditing from my dad and stepmom and all this. But I got there one day, and I got up and I went over to my dad had a detached building with an office, and I went to visit with his secretary assistant, and I got called to come back to the house for lunch. I walked into the house, and my mother is there in my father's house. They've been divorced for 25 years. They hadn't been speaking. It wasn't an amicable situation. So I see my mom in my dad's house, and I'm like, this is about Scientology. So now it's like panic mode. I was really pissed off about this, but
so this was an intervention, as they call it, right?
This is the intervention. Yeah. I'm introduced to Jerry and Hannah and one other guy.
So they were at your dad's house.
They were staying at some other. They weren't staying in the house, but my mother was. Anyways, and they started showing videos and things, and I'm sitting there like a little stone thing, and I'm looking above the TV out the window, just trying to figure out, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? So as time goes on, I know that Jerry and Hana, they traveled with a whole bunch of references, and a lot of them were lawsuits against Scientology. Now, I'd been this dutiful public person in LA, going to every IAS, International Association of Scientology, every IAS briefing I could get to, where public people were informed about the current lawsuits supposedly threatening Scientology. So I think I am well versed on all this, but Jerry kind of plays the black hat, and Hana kind of plays the white hat. So they each had their roles, and I'll talk about Hana later because that was another key thing. Anyways, I'm trying to speed this along. Jerry had a lawsuit, and it was now I'm forgetting who it was. It's really important. She used to be ethics officer worldwide, Vicky Asnaran. He had a lawsuit from her suing the church.
Yeah.
I had no idea about that. I'd been kind of wondering why Vicky Asnaran wasn't showing up at the recent events, like 5 or 6 times a year.
She'd been the deputy inspector general of Religious Technology Center.
Yes,
before
there you go. And before that, she was EOWW, which I remember for some reason.
She was on mission there. She was part of the GO disbanding, Janice.
Yeah.
And so the reason why this is so significant is because at one point when I was at Flag, getting onto Solo Knots or staying on Solo Knots, I had an ethics handling with her. She happened to be there doing ethics handlings. It was one of the best ethics handlings ever. And so I always looked for her. I just had this little kinship with her. Now I'm reading this lawsuit, and I couldn't believe it. I'm taking all these notes. I'm furiously taking notes. I'm thinking in my cult-ridden mind, I'm taking notes that I'm going to take back to LA and give to Scientology as if they don't know about it. Oh my God. I have to laugh now. Anyway, Jerry we're going through this step by step. We get to the 4th cause of action, and the 4th cause of action was false imprisonment. And the false imprisonment was where she was at Gold or Over the Rainbow at Int, whatever. She's assigned to the RPF, and when you're assigned to the RPF, they didn't want you to leave without authority. So they assign you a bodyguard. I happened to actually know, I had met somebody who was ex-Sea Org, who when he was at Gold, he did function in security as a bodyguard for people newly assigned to the RPF. So I absolutely knew that this was a going practice in the Sea Org. Right. And my mind is just all of a sudden, I'm sitting in my 4th grade class reading about the Bill of Rights, and I'm thinking false imprisonment. I mean, you can't do this. This is against the law. And the words went through my mind. I can no longer be a member of this group. Then this was like the epiphany of epiphanies. So then we keep going. Jerry and I keep going. We go to the 5th cause of action. I'm still taking notes. I'm still thinking I'm going to turn these notes into Scientology. But yet on another part of me, I have decided I can't do this anymore. I have to leave Scientology. Right. I get up the next morning. I'm getting very little sleep at this point. But I get up the next morning because I can't sleep. It's like 6 in the morning, and I decide to go take a walk. And I go outside. It's February in Pennsylvania. It's cold, and I'm walking, and I'm thinking, I can't be in this group anymore. I said, I can't be in this group anymore. What am I going to do? I'm going to lose all my friends. I can't continue with my job because I had a job at a company that was staffed full of Scientologists. It's going to be this and that and the other thing, and my mind's going a million miles a minute. And so by this point, I have sort of reconciled the two things. It's like I can no longer be a member of Scientology. So now I am going that route that I was very afraid of doing. And I walked back up this long driveway to my dad's house, and I burst into tears because I'm thinking, what's the purpose of life if it's not to slave in the Sea Org or slave on staff or slave in life to get the money to pay to go up the bridge and do counseling and courses? What else is there?
Right.
Well, there happens to be a whole lot of other shit going on out there, but when you're in Scientology, you've got that cult mindset, and you just don't entertain any other options. It was heavy. It was heavy.
Yeah.
So anyway.
No, I get it. Janice, that's really interesting. Lisa, it's interesting that you mentioned that you knew Vicky Asnaran, you had interaction with her, and then this security person, because that actually, like if they had presented to you somebody that you had no idea you were in that mindset, you probably would have gone like, I don't believe this is a bunch of BS, right? But it's kind of similar, Janice, if you think about it, because, that was the same thing. When Miscavige beat me up, I went, my kindergarten, like you said, I went, that's not okay. That's not Scientology. I'm not putting up with that, And then the thing, like you mentioned, that you knew this other person, so it had to be true. Janice and Paul, they blew the same night I did the second time, and I came back. And then when they told me, oh yeah, they're gone too, that confirmed for me that I was not crazy of what I was looking at, because before I just thought, well, maybe I'm the only one that's seeing this, So that's interesting that Hana and Jerry used that. And that connected with you, that information that you knew Vicky Asnaran,
And Jerry had no idea. It just all happened. I will say that in the time frame of the intervention, it's like I got to my dad's house the next morning. The next day at noon, it started, and by I think in less than 40, in maybe 24 hours from there or 36 hours from there, I was out. I had that big epiphany in the middle of the night at like 4 in the morning. And then after that was all of this starting the re-education process with some of with all the references that they traveled with. In leading up to that major epiphany, there were a couple of little things that it was like, if you shake up a soda bottle and then you just kind of, you let a little bit of that pent-up pressure off. There are a couple of things that happened. I don't remember all of them, but I remember one thing was my dad telling me early in the game when I realized, I looked around the house and I realized that all the phones had been removed from every room. This is a house with, 5 bedrooms and whatever. Yeah. All the phones were gone except for the one in the kitchen. And when I confronted my dad angrily saying, it's like, you can't keep me here. And he said, no, I can't keep you here. But if you leave, I will be bitterly, bitterly disappointed. And boy, that hit me right there. It's like I couldn't, I couldn't get up and leave. And, because whatever issues I might have with my dad, he's a really good guy. And so that was just one of those points where the soda bottle left a little bit of that pressure off. A couple of other times were when I cornered Hana by herself. Because I had realized that I could confess things to Hana that bothered me about Scientology, and she wasn't going to write me up.
Right.
So she was a safe terminal, a safe place.
She's a very sweet person, so everybody knows, right, Janice?
Exactly. Yeah. And she's got that lilting, lovely South African accent. Oh, darling. Oh, lovely. And so it's just this, not only is it a safe space, it's just lined with cottony pillows, and it's just wonderful. It's a big warm hug. So I confessed a couple of things to her that had bothered me repeatedly about Scientology. But what you do, I just want to make it really important that mind control is something you do to yourself. You are induced to pattern and form your mind in certain ways so that these misgivings that you have about this group that you're in, when they come up, you can put them away. Mm-hmm. I likened it to that I had a carpet in my mind, and that I would lift up the carpet and shove that stuff under it and nail it back down. So that, because I don't want any misgivings about Scientology come up while I'm in a confessional. I'm doing that. What do they call it? A security check before you go to the next level. The higher you go, the more sec checks you get. And so the less that comes up, the less money it's going to cost you to get on to the next level or continue, whatever you're doing. So you learn you program your own mind to just lock that stuff in a vault and don't look at it. And here was my opportunity to voice some of these misgivings to somebody who's not going to write a KR, a knowledge report, and send me back to ethics and confessionals and security checks. Right. So, and that just let more pressure off that shaken up bottle of soda. And so there were 3 or 4 of those by the time I hit that 4th cause of action in that lawsuit. And then, it happened in a very short period of time, which compared to people who, you guys, people who were at INT and were being subject to terrible abuse, and just I've been in the Sea Org a little bit, and I know that. But even in a Class 4 organ at admission, Thursday at 2:00 is the time of reckoning, and if your stats are down, your life is going to be very unpleasant. And just doing that for 15 years it wears on you.
Yeah.
So
anyway. Janice, it's all about the information control. Do you know what I mean? It's just like Claudio and Renata Lugli's book, that they wrote about David Miscavige that we've done videos on. I mean, literally, they as public Scientologists were finding out these things because they started reading the truth rundown on the internet and this and that, and they weren't supposed to do that. But as soon as they started finding out, and they go like, well, I know David Miscavige and I know Shelley Miscavige, and yeah, I noticed things that, what I mean, kind of confirmed doubts that people had in their mind. Know what I mean?
Mark, it's peeling the onion is what it is.
Exactly. Yeah, I was going to say that. I was leaving that for you, Janice.
It comes off in layers.
Yeah, okay, a charged up soda bottle, or we're peeling the onion. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I mean, like you as a public person, Hana and Jerry, the way they went about this was just basically telling you the truth that you weren't allowed to look at. Do you know what I mean? And that's why you're not allowed to look at the internet if you're in Scientology public or whatever. That's why people go, well, why don't you just read this stuff? Well, you're not allowed to, because they find out about it. You're in deep trouble. You know what I mean? It's all about mind control.
My experience is all of this happened before there was an internet. But you'll remember that the Los Angeles Times did a 6-part expose on Scientology. And my mother is asking me, didn't you read it? Didn't you read it? And then how do I explain to her that I'm not allowed to read it and I'm not allowing myself to read it?
Right. And then at that time, too, the Time magazine article had come out, and that was all over the place. And of course, Scientology would go and buy all of the magazines at newsstands around Clearwater or whatever, so that the public couldn't buy one by accident and read it,
My intervention was in February of 1991, and that Time magazine article came out in May of 1991, and I was dancing on the ceiling about that thing.
That's amazing. So your parents contacted Hana and Jerry. Is that how it all started?
Yeah. My mother read in a magazine article, she read something about interventions and getting people out of Scientology in particular. And for some I guess at the end of the article, there was a reference to the Jewish Federation on Wilshire in Los Angeles. So my mother called the Jewish Federation. The Jewish religion in particular is a little bit hip, pretty much hip to cults. A disproportionate number of Jewish young people, at least in the 70s, were getting sucked into cults. I was told that it's, for whatever reason, there just were a lot of them. So the Jewish Federation, they had actually two counselors there, like psychologists, not psychologists, or what's your MSW, Masters in Social Work. But they were licensed counselors that I even went for like 9 months, that they worked with ex-cult members of anything. It didn't have to be Scientology. Yeah. But so she calls the Jewish Federation. I got off track. She calls the Jewish Federation and they give her Hana and Jerry's number. She calls Hana and Jerry. She finds out that this is what they do. Then she calls my dad and she says she wants it. She just, after years and years of not speaking, I just want to float this by you. What do you feel about doing something that would that could possibly get Lisa out of Scientology? And he's like, hell yeah. And he was recently married to his third wife at the time. Had a home outside of Pennsylvania. There was a home in Palm Desert that had belonged to his mother that he still owned. They had a big meeting there. My mom, Jerry, Hana, my dad, and his wife, Marty. And that was a big planning session. They had more than one of those, I think, where they, planned the whole thing out and things that you could say and remove all of the phones and all of this stuff. So,
But you were not locked in a room or anything like that. Like you
absolutely not.
You could have freely walked
I
out
walked
the door.
That morning that I took a walk, I had taken a walk the day before, and my dad hopped in a car and came after me, just checking.
So no van came and opened up the doors, and no one jumped out and grabbed you and
put a hood over your head or anything like that,
and
right?
This Pennsylvania house is in kind of a rural area, and I'm walking down the road and I'm thinking, this is at the beginning of the intervention, and I am so angry I cannot tell you. But and I'm thinking, well, I could walk over to there, and there's a store and there's a payphone. Maybe I could call Flag, because I'm auditing on Silver Knots, and alert somebody there that I'm doing this, or call the AO. Flag being in Florida, I thought that'd be closer. But I'm thinking about it, and I go, you know what? I've been doing this for 15 years, and I spent all this money to go up the bridge. They're the WOGs. I'm auditing on OT6. So I should be able to handle this. I should be able to handle this. I'm better than those people. So I'm going to stay and handle it. There you go. Look what happened.
That's good.
The point on you're better than those people, that is a so Scientology attitude that you're better than anybody else. And when you do leave, you think you're better than everybody else, but then you're like, wait a minute, I don't know anything,
I'm just like everybody else.
You're just like everybody else. There's no you're better, and there's no that you're worse. You just need to catch up.
Well, and that's the reason why disconnection is such an evil policy, because literally, if Scientologists who cannot look at the internet or read any of this stuff, if they just honestly went and met with people who could tell them, hey, there's this other information over here, you probably should read it. And then people, like you said, your kindergarten kicked in. Mine did too. I'm going like, this is wrong. You know what I mean? It's like, I have human rights. I have that. I'm not putting up with this crap. You know what I mean? And then you have to deal with, well, how am I going to deal with it? Or, it just is. That's why Scientology does it. They want to just keep control of these people that are giving them money and donations and whatever, It's crazy.
When I left, Mark, I remember feeling my freedoms, or, things that I had originally when I showed up in the Sea Org, slowly things were being eaten away. You had an hour for dinner. Now you're down to like 15 minutes if you're lucky. And you had liberty every 2 weeks, or, and it used to be 48 hours. Now it was down to 24 hours, and things just kept, all your rights and things just kept eaten away. Yeah. And to the point where it's like, wait a minute, now my whole life is being controlled.
Yeah.
And you're backed into a corner as to what are you going to do? And that's when you make that decision.
And for us, since we were right at the top with the head of Scientology, Hubbard was gone, and he was always our hope, Janice, right? We always thought Hubbard will sort it out. He'll handle it. That was always the feeling. But then when he was gone, then we're left with the Lilliputian, David Miscavige, who was a Tasmanian devil. And then when you realize that he's going crazy, you go like, I'm not putting up with this.
Well,
because our viewpoint was, we'll wait till RH comes back when we left, But then peeling the onion, we decided, you know what? He ain't coming back, and we're not going back.
Right. Well, also, as an executive, I used to feel it was my job to help protect the staff from abuse, and and that was going through my head as to, well, if I leave, who's going to be there to help the staff out, and when they're being abused and ganged up on, and that was a key thing on why I stayed as long as I did. Yeah. But then it was a point of, I was pregnant, I was not going to be pulled into ethics and ganged up on, and so I was out of there.
Yeah, Janice, you'll remember one of the last things that we did together was the meters, the e-meters, moving them up to the gold base. And there was all this pressure about having to get it was the Mark Super 6 or Super 7, whatever it was. I can't remember the number. But like literally, it was brought up to the gold base that Janice was handling it along with me. We were both trying to keep DM away from it, and we were getting it done. But we were shielding these staff that were working around the clock trying to get this stuff taken care of.
That's
Remember
right.
that? Yeah. Anyway,
yeah, good story,
just over an
Lisa.
hour and 10
Thank
minutes.
you.
Great story, Lisa. Just so people know, I mean, you then obviously you've been successful, since then in after Scientology, and have a great life and all that. I take it, right?
Yeah, I ended up reconnecting and marrying a guy I dated in high school, and that's how that's what basically brought me to the Las Vegas area. He's a highly decorated aircraft maintenance technician. He decided to hang out his own shingle in, 2002. For 15 years, we were running an aircraft maintenance business. We're fixing airplanes, and that's not enough stress for you. That's another life or death business, but. Now he's just consulting, and we're winding down from that.
But not only does he fix airplanes, he makes great margaritas.
Oh, there you go.
And he cooks a mean steak.
That's important.
Yeah.
That's important. Well, Lisa, this has been fascinating for me, and we'll have you on again if you're up for it, where we can go in more in depth of what your time in Scientology and all that. But I think
there's a lot of things that we didn't touch on at all. So yeah, I would definitely do this again. Sorry to cut.
Yeah, but I think they're going to be fascinated by your whole interview and the exit counseling that you got. I don't want to use that word that Scientology uses because it's ridiculous. But anyway, it's just basically facing the truth and then making your own judgment based off of the information you got, And it's difficult to do, but you did it, and well done to you. Congratulations, I wanted to mention Janice's book, Commoner's Messenger, Book 1. There she is there on the deck with L. Ron Hubbard, 13 years old, and also Commoner's Messenger, Book 2. They're both available in our merchandise store down below. If you order from the merchandise store, you can get it autographed personally by Janice Gillum Grady. And you can also order, of course, on Amazon, but there's no autograph involved with that. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, of course, is Janice's complete liquid multivitamins. There they are there. It's peach flavored. You get all your daily vitamins in a liquid form. Shake it up, put it in the refrigerator after you have it, just a shot glass or 2 tablespoons, and you've taken all your vitamins for the day. You don't have to take a handful of pills. And it's also available in our merchandise store down below, and Janice will send that out to you. But it's another great product, and we want to thank Janice's company that she owns, Outback Naturals, for sponsoring us, right, Janice?
Yep, you're welcome. Yeah, Lisa's one of my regular customers. She likes the Qualicom Magnesium.
Qualicom.
That's right.
It's my jam.
Good. That's great. Anyway, also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. Rock slam that like button. Hit that notification button. That way you know whenever videos come out, and it helps get the word out to other people. And if you have any questions or comments about what we've been talking about here today, please go down in the question and comment section down below. And we look forward to hearing from you. Anyway, that's the show for today. Do you guys have anything you'd like to say before we end off on the show?
I don't, Lisa.
I'm good, but I think I could do another one.
Okay.
There's areas that we didn't touch on.
Good. We'll do that.
Thank you, Lisa, for being here. And thank you, everyone, for watching the show. We hope you find it informative. Until next time, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Toodles.